Hello, this is Davina from World Journeys and welcome to our guide on Victoria Falls. This is a part of Africa I've been lucky enough to visit on a few occasions, and I've been at several different times of the year and always had an incredible experience here. So this guide is going to take you through the highlights of both the Zambian and the Zimbabwean side of the falls. I'll tell you a little bit about what there is to see and also, more importantly, whereabouts to stay and give you a few tips on this incredible area. Welcome to Victoria Falls, the world's largest sheet of falling water which spreads across Zimbabwe and Zambia. The falls are one of the 7 natural wonders of the world and designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in the late 1980s. The Victoria Falls forms part of the Zambezi River, which is actually the 4th largest river in Africa and spans across 6 different nations, of which the falls are the boundary that divide the upper and the middle parts of the Zambezi. One of the first questions we get asked at World Journeys is, when should I visit Victoria Falls? Well, there's quite a simple answer. You can visit them year-round. This is mainly due to the good climate and also plenty of blue skies, which makes for terrific photography. We can advise the most suitable time for you to go, depending if you want to see them at their absolute peak, as in the dry season, the sides that faces Zambia does tend to dry up. This map will give you a really good overview of where everything is located within Victoria Falls. So you'll see on the right hand side you've got Zambia, and of course on the left is Zimbabwe. 16 of the 20 viewing points across the falls are actually on the Zimbabwean side, so that's around 75%. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a better experience in Zimbabwe. You'll find there's just more to look at perhaps from the Zimbabwean side, but to be honest, the Zambian side is equally as amazing. And if you're visiting in high water seasons from both sides, you'll get completely drenched, and it's just fantastic. The other thing you want to make sure of is that you don't book the accommodation in the wrong country compared to where you're doing your activities. So we will make sure that we've got your accommodation booked on the right side that you want to visit, but also making sure that your activities are booked on the same side as well. Now, in terms of the visas for these areas, it's 50 US to go into Zambia and 50 US to go into Zimbabwe. If you're arriving in one of those countries, we suggest purchasing something called a multi-visa. So it's a multi-country visa that will allow you to travel back and forth between the 2 countries, and this allows you to, if you're staying in Zimbabwe and you perhaps want to visit the Zambian side of the falls, you can then pop across to Zambia and then come back to Zimbabwe. Otherwise, you end up paying 50 US dollars each time you have to cross the border. So we can remind you of that in your documentation. Taking a look at the high water season, there's a fantastic picture here that gives you an idea as to how full on the spray is. This spray can actually be seen as far away as 50 kilometres when it's high water season. And this is around April through to June when the falls are in full flood. And as you can see, it's pretty full on. Around 600 million litres of water per second flow over the edge, so do prepare to get wet. So the falls will start decreasing in volume by about August, and generally around October most of the Zambian side may have dried up. So that doesn't happen every single year. I took this photo from the helicopter. This was actually in November, so you can see here that the Zambian side has dried up quite a bit, but we still enjoyed some spectacular views of the falls whilst walking along the Zimbabwean side there. The area around the Zambezi is known as the adventure capital because there are so many incredible activities to enjoy, and there is a huge amount to do here. You'll find there's activities such as whitewater rafting. If you're travelling during the high season, there's generally only half-day trips available, whereas if you travel in the low water, they offer full-day trips. You can also enjoy things like kayaking safaris. There's lovely little canoeing trips along the Zambezi, and if you're looking for something a little bit more high adrenaline, there's the huge bungee jump there off the Victoria Falls Bridge. For those of you that are completely mad, you might like to take a swim in the Devil's Pool. This is located on the Zambian side of the falls and accessible obviously when the water levels are a lot lower. A guide will take you for a walk across the river and then will assist you in jumping into the Devil's Pool, which is located right at the edge of the water's flow. So you can lay on your stomach there and look right over the edge of Victoria Falls. Certainly not for the faint-hearted. Now, if the idea of jumping into the Devil's Pool doesn't appeal to you, don't worry, because there are certainly a lot of other things you can do whilst visiting the falls. Of course, the helicopter trips are certainly one of the most popular, otherwise known as the Flight of Angels, and this trip really gives you an incredible view of both sides of the falls. You get some spectacular views of the Zambezi River, and this can also be done by a microlight flight as well. There's amazing photography in this region. There's a lot of activities such as the canoeing. You can enjoy things like zip lining, and of course, there's an incredible bungee jump off the Victoria Falls Bridge. There's something a little bit more sedate, then I can highly recommend the Zambezi River cruises. There is the choice of doing a nice early morning breakfast cruise, and there's also the sunset cruises. I can suggest doing both because you do obviously get the beautiful sunrise and of course those gorgeous sunsets. You'll be picked up from your hotel and taken out on a small boat and enjoying a nice leisurely cruise along the Zambezi, sipping your gin and tonic or your champagne. And of course, the colours of the skies here are constantly changing, and there's an abundance of wildlife and bird life to see along the way. The wildlife along the Zambezi is another real highlight, and when you're doing one of those breakfast cruises or one of the sunset cruises, you will see some incredible wildlife. You'll see the hippos coming out of the water yawning, you'll see elephants coming out of the bush all lining up on the edge of the river enjoying a drink. And also if you're doing something like one of the microlighting trips, they can take the microlight fairly low down over the river and you can see a lot of the wildlife from there, and it's just an incredible sight. For those of you that love birding, generally the bird viewing is excellent year round. However, if you do have a particular type of bird that you wish to see, there may be a more favourable time to visit. Another lovely excursion to enjoy if you are staying at Victoria Falls is the Bush Tracks steam train. So this will be a pick-up from your hotel and you'll be taken to a beautiful train where you'll enjoy a nice meal. There's a lovely little observation car and they'll take you out onto the Victoria Falls Bridge where you can get some incredible photos, and it's just another way to enjoy the falls, enjoy the scenery whilst enjoying some good food, good company, and of course good wine. Looking at where to stay at Victoria Falls, we've got a great range of accommodation. I'm not going to go through every option, I'm just going to go through some of the more popular places that we tend to sell. But of course there are options both on the Zambian and the Zimbabwean side of the falls. The closer you stay to the falls, generally there is going to be a higher price tag, but we've also got options further up the river, a couple of kilometres up, that can bring the price down slightly. There's also some lovely places to stay on the actual river there on some of those islands if you're looking for something a little bit more pristine away from the crowds. If you love old world charm, then I can highly recommend the Victoria Falls Hotel, which is located on the Zimbabwean side of the falls. It was built by the British back in the early 1900s and originally conceived as accommodation for workers who were building the Cape to Cairo railway. So there's a huge amount of history at this hotel. It's got that beautiful charm about it. Of course, the Queen has stayed here. It does have its own private walkway down to the falls, which will take you around 20 minutes to walk down there. One thing I particularly enjoyed about staying here was just walking around the grounds. There's beautiful gardens there. You had little warthogs running around the property. There were monkeys, and it was all very, very entertaining. There's a beautiful pool area. There's the lovely bar area, and of course, it's a great place to go and experience high tea out on the lawn, which looks straight down the gorge there, and you can see in the background the Victoria Falls Bridge. Even if you're not staying at the hotel, I would suggest coming here to enjoy a high tea. But if you do love that old world charm, then this is certainly the place for you. Alala Lodge is also located on the Zimbabwean side of the falls. It's a stunning lodge, beautifully landscaped gardens, and it's only an 8-minute walk to the entrance of Victoria Falls, so it's in a fantastic location. It's also very close to town, so if you do like the idea of just going for a bit of a wander, you've got all the conveniences on your doorstep. One thing that's lovely about this particular lodge is it does have a very nice laid-back feel to it, and it's nice to be able to walk around the manicured gardens and you'll spot quite a lot of wildlife. So you'll see warthogs, monkeys, bush bucks. You might be lucky enough to see elephants. It's got a lovely pool area, and the restaurant here is excellent as well. There's a couple of different options with the room types. So the upper levels there open up onto a lovely balcony, whereas the rooms below actually open up onto those lovely manicured lawns. Heading over to the Zambian side of the falls, you've got the Royal Livingston Hotel. This is the closest property to the falls, which is only a 5-minute walk to the entrance. And the National Park fare is also included in your stay, and that's the entrance to the Zambian side. And this means you can visit at your leisure any time. The hotel does have a lovely feel to it. It's got beautifully manicured lawns. It's got a lovely large pool area. They'll serve sundowners out on the decking so you can watch the sunset. You can hear the roar of the falls. They also serve high teas in the lounge, and as you walk through the property you can also spot zebra and antelopes grazing on the lawn, so it's got a really great feel to it. If you're looking to extend your stay in the surrounding area of Victoria Falls and you perhaps want to explore Zimbabwe, it's great because there's some fabulous national parks to explore, such as Hwangi National Park. This is the largest national park in Zimbabwe, and you've also got areas such as Mana Pools, Lake Kariba, and there's a huge amount of wildlife which is making a comeback in these areas, and of course spectacular bird life. So Zimbabwe is a really lovely option to add on for your safari experience. Zambia is a great safari destination for those who want to experience the real wilderness. It's also ideal for those who are returning to Africa, perhaps on their second or their third trip. It is geared towards the high-end safari goer with a really good selection of high-end lodges and camps, which offer a more of a pristine experience because of their remote locations. The walking trails are less explored, and because of this, it is quite exclusive with fewer travellers coming to the area. Kafue National Park offers fantastic bird watching. It also offers really good fishing. If you're cruising down the lower Zambezi, you'll find an abundance of hippos, elephants, and also crocodiles. If you're looking at doing something a little bit more active on your trip to Africa, South Luangwa National Park offers guests some fantastic walking safari. And you'll travel between mobile camps on a daily basis and walking around 10 to 12 kilometres per day, and it's a very unique way to experience Africa. Botswana is also an incredible place to add on your safari experience if you've been to Victoria Falls. And I say that's a nice combination because it's a quick transfer down to Chobe National Park from the falls, which only takes around 2 hours by road. Now, Chobe National Park has got one of the highest concentrations of elephants anywhere in Africa, so if you love elephants, this is definitely the place to be. If you want to go somewhere a little bit more remote and full of the wilderness experience, then the Okavango Delta is absolutely a must-see. It offers so much variety with safaris done by four-wheel drive, done by boat, mokoros, which are the little dugout canoes, and also on foot. So it's a very unique experience when the Delta is in full flood, with hundreds of tiny little waterways to explore, and it's also home to a huge amount of the predators and also incredible bird life. So thanks for joining us on our journey through Victoria Falls. I hope that's given you some inspiration on planning your next trip to Africa, and also give you some ideas as to other things you can add on to the Victoria Falls experience. Quite a few of us at World Journeys have travelled to this area and would love to help you plan your next trip.